Hello YouTube! Today in the Naughty Librarian, I am doing my mid-August wrap-up. So far so good in August. I have not DNF'd anything. I've read a bunch of very different books and none of them have been terrible. Like, to be honest, one of them isn't great, but I don't think it's a dumpster fire, so there's that. But yeah, let's just get into the books I read. I got a lot of reviewing to do. First category is poisonous plants, and I read 2 of them. I read Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I feel like this book is really trendy right now because like everybody's reading it, and so far I've seen pretty much everyone really enjoying it. And no surprise here, I also very much enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. I didn't think it was like a masterpiece, but I did think it was very good. The basic theme here is that this is a Gothic type horror story about colonization. And we're following Noemi. She is a Mexican woman. And she is very kind of like a Hitchcock heroine, actually. When you first meet her, she really reminded me of the main character of Psycho. You know, in the beginning of the movie, the main character who, you know, in the shower, like her. She really reminds me of her. Kind of like unlikable in a way, a bit of like a fun time girl, and like, but very fascinating. So yeah, Noemi is kind of very much like a Hitchcock heroine. And the whole vibe is kind of Hitchcockian, and I was like immediately very intrigued by that. So we're following Noemi. She's going to get her cousin Catalina because they got this really weird letter from her saying like there's ghosts and like blah, I'm going crazy. And they suspect that maybe her husband, who is, you know, this white guy from England, is mistreating her. So Noemi goes to their house. And mind you, their house is like literally an English manor they brought over like brick by brick from England. So you're in the middle of Mexico and there's an English manor. And I get it. It's kind of an obvious colonialism like metaphor here. It's just like, yeah, they came over to the country and they're just spreading out like fungus because there's this whole thing with fungus in the book. And yeah, we get it. It's kind of an obvious metaphor here. And I don't want to say too much about the plot because it is Gothic horror and a lot of it's very atmospheric and you need to pay attention closely to details. From the very beginning, it is very obvious this family is a group of creeps and there's something very rotten in the state of Denmark. Well, the state of Mexico, so to speak. And we're trying to figure out and unravel the mystery behind that. That being said, I feel like there should be some trigger warnings that I had not seen at all anywhere before reading this book. That there are lots of instances of sexual assault. Like, a lot. It never really progresses to a full-on rape scene, but there is a lot of sexual assault type situations in the book. And yeah, I hadn't heard about any of that content before reading it, so I figured I would throw it in here in case you are triggered by that. And also like body horror. Like frankly, this shit is gross. Like I hope you got a strong stomach because like some scenes in here you're gonna be like, bleh. There's some gross body horror here. Like gross. Like The Thing level body horror where you're just like, oh my gosh. So be aware of those 2 items because I didn't know about them going in. And I mean, I was able to read the whole thing and get through it, but I feel like I should put those out there. But back to the story. As a concept, the idea of colonization being a horror story is brilliant. I love it. And I think the one complaint I've seen from many other reviewers is that it wasn't, quote, Mexican enough. And I mean, I'm not really one who can say whether it's Mexican enough or not because I am not a Mexican person. But, you know, the horror story here is that it's colonization. So there's a point why there's not a lot of Mexican culture being involved in the story because it's about colonization and the horror of that. So, like, I get it. There were some, like, artistic choices that I thought maybe could have got that point across better and had more Mexican flavor to it. For example, the manor house It's literally an English-style manor house in the middle of Mexico. Well, that is a striking image. I think a better representation of colonization is that if they get to this beautiful, you know, Mexican style architecture house, and they get there and you open the front door and it's been gutted and the whole inside, the interior of this house is an English manor. I think that would have been a better metaphor, because you're like, yes, look at all this natural beauty. We're gonna gut it and put our own stuff here. So personally, like, little things like that would have given it a bit more of, you know, Mexican flavor, and I think would have been a better metaphor. But I didn't write the book, so it's not my job to do that. I think it's actually very, very good. It's very well plotted and written, and is definitely gothic horror. I would say if you like gothic horror stories, if you like Crimson Peak, the movie, for example, you would really, really get into this. But yeah, it's gross at points. Like the body horror, it's straight up gross. But yes, there is something paranormal happening here, and it's creepy, and it's well done, and you get this sense of like creepiness for the whole book. So yes, I do recommend. I think it's actually very well done. There are certain tweaks I think might have been better for the metaphor, but I mean, I'm not the author, so it's not my job to do that. But yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I liked it. I gave it 4 stars. You know, perhaps even 4.5 stars if I want to feel generous, but it's definitely at least 4. Pretty good. I also read Girl Serpentthorne by Melissa Bachardust, and like, I didn't have words for a second because I really wanted to like this more than I did. In the end, like, I don't think it's bad. I gave it like 3.5 stars. Like, it's a little better than average, but it's not as good as her other book, which, mind you, makes me kind of rethink a bit, because the other book was very slow paced and dreamy, and a lot of people were getting into that, and a lot of that follows over in here, but I don't think it was done as well here as it was in the first book. Also, this book feels very YA, whereas the other one felt adult, so it's a different vibe here. The basic idea here is that we're following this Princess Soraya, and she was cursed and or blessed to have skin that is poisonous to the touch. So she's kind of hidden away and, you know, easy prey for manipulation, essentially. And she has to, you know, come to accept herself and save the kingdom, etc., etc. The things I liked about the book is that it was very steeped in Persian folklore and mythology, so I liked having the cultural aspects here, because I thought that the author actually did a really good job incorporating in the mythology and the culture and everything, so I thought that was really well done. The only things that were maybe not as well done was the characters. These characters, like, I was really kind of into the villain, honestly. I thought the villain had a very good story arc and was getting a raw deal a lot. I'm like, really? Someone just needed to give this kid a hug? And frankly, I think it would have been all right. So a lot of the interpersonal relationships here were being, you know, explored about as deep as a YA book goes. And I mean, that's not the book's fault. You know, I'm trying to put away my bias here. I was coming into it thinking I was going to get something a bit more adult, but I didn't. This is definitely a YA book. So it's not nearly as complex as I was hoping for, because the last book was very complex, and maybe that's why people didn't get into it, so they kind of dumbed it down. I'm not sure, but I feel like it could have been amped up, and if it was a bit more adult, they weren't trying to dumb it down, it could have been really, really good. So it's like a matter of just wanting more, I think. But as far as like world building and culture and those aspects go, I really liked it. But the characters could have been better. I thought the villain just frankly needed a hug and honestly had a very interesting storyline. I would have wanted to see more of that. And I don't know. It was all right. It was slightly above average, but it wasn't my favorite thing. Next category is, these characters are so dumb, and I read 2 of them. I read The Wrong Highlander by Lindsay Sands, and I mean, to be fair, all of the books in this series are a little dumb, but that's why I like them. They're book candy. They're simple, and they all kind of have the same plot, and this is like pretty late in the series. I think it's like book 8 or something, so it's like we've had the same plot a bunch. And the book is a little meta at points, and they're pointing out like, hey, isn't it weird? We kind of all had the same story, and like they laugh about it. So there are aspects of this book that kind of pokes fun at itself. And you know what? I'll say that it's grew on me. Definitely. It starts out where I was just like, oh my gosh, these characters are the dumbest humans I've ever seen. They're so dumb. But we'll get into that in a second. The basic plot here is there's this woman, Evina, and her dad is very sick. And she's like, oh, I gotta find Rory Buchanan because Rory is a very notable healer and he'll come save my dad. And she sees this guy bathing in a waterfall like the cover suggests because of course. And she's like, that's Rory, let's grab him. And, you know, they end up knocking him unconscious and basically kidnapping him and saying, help my dad. And wouldn't you know, it turns out to be Conran Buchanan, Rory's brother. It's the wrong brother. She just kidnapped this guy who was just taking a bath. He's having a rough day. And, of course, romance somehow blossoms from that. And honestly, when this book started, I was astounded at how dumb these characters were. Like, I'll give you an example here. And yes, this is an actual event that happens in the book, but it's not really spoiling any of the plot. Conran actually does know a bit about healing. He helps the dad. The dad is stable. He's like, all right, I've done my job. I'm gonna go get some breakfast. He opens the dad's door and Evina is sleeping on the floor right outside the door. And he's just like, oh, well, I don't want you to sleep on the floor because, you know, he's a gentleman. And he like picks her up and he's like, okay, I'll go put her in bed with the dad. Like the dad doesn't have a contagious illness. He just had like an infection. So he's carrying her, he's walking her over to the bed. And, you know, because this is a rom-com, of course he trips. And he's like, whoa! And they fall into the bed with him on top of her. And then, of course, they end up making out. And I'm sure you guys have also picked up on this, but I'll point this out, that they are literally full-on making out in the same bed as her sick dad. Her dad is like a foot away from them just like going at it. And I was like, you guys are so dumb. Like, who does that? Who does that? And then, you know, the dad ends up scheming a bit to get them together. And they're all like, how did you know we liked each other? And the dad's like, oh my God, you dummies literally made out on me. Like, that was my first clue. And they were honestly too dumb to realize that's how the dad knew they liked each other. Because they literally made out on him and they're just so fucking dumb. And like, for a while I was just like, oh, like every time these people did stuff, I was like, it hurt my brain. Like I couldn't be smart enough to be dumb enough to figure out their actions. Like it was just really hard. And then eventually the book starts getting a bit meta and they kind of make fun of the situation here because of course someone's trying to kill Evina and they have to solve the murder mystery, which is literally all of the books. And they kind of poke fun at that and being like, oh yeah, isn't that funny how we're all the same and blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, yeah, you know what? Conran, he's like the epitome of young, dumb, and full of cum, but like, honestly, he's actually kind of sweet. He's actually a nice guy. He's just not very bright all the time. Yeah, you know, he knows how to heal people. He knows medicinal herbs. He's not stupid. He just isn't very good at making decisions. So, you know what? They grew on me, okay? Like, by the end of the book, I kind of liked the characters, but when it started, I was like, oh my gosh. How did you get this far in life? Like, ooh. I ended up giving like 3.5 stars because I could not disregard the beginning of the book, which was so stupid. But by the end, it was kind of sweet. And I was like, all right, you dummies can be in love, whatever. So yeah, if you don't mind a book starting off very dumb, but then getting kind of good by the end, I recommend. It's kind of fun. I also read Aurora Burning by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. And I'm gonna say this is probably the worst book I've read so far this month. I gave it like 2.5 stars because it does have its moments where it was kind of fun, and so it's not a complete dumpster fire. But on the other hand, I will also admit that one of the pages in this book is ripped because I literally threw it out of anger. So there's that. This is book 2 of this Aurora cycle series, and book 1, mind you, I didn't hate. I thought it was fun, but ultimately not their best work. It wasn't great, but it was fun. So I was like, all right, let's go into book 2. Maybe like book 1, they hadn't had their footing yet, and like book 2 is going to clear some things up and it'll get good. And it didn't. This is as good as it's going to get. And honestly, like, there were certain points of this story where I was like, my rage was burning with the fire of 1,000 suns at the stupidity of these characters. Mind you, these characters are like 18, 19 years old. They're not always going to make great decisions, but the point of the book is this is the squad that's supposed to save the universe. And we gotta rely on these fucking dummies to save us? Like, we all better make our peace with things because we're not getting saved. They're the dumbest group of people. And, okay. It's gonna be hard describing their stupidity without getting into specific plot points, but I'm gonna try to explain one situation. The situation that made me throw the book without naming character names and being vague. Go with me on this. We have this squad of misfits, and they're here trying to save the galaxy from, you know, a big bad. This evil entity's trying to take over the universe, and they're trying to stop it. You know, and that's like a fun concept. I like, you know, squads of space misfits. Yes, love that. And, like, mind you, they are children. Technically, they're like 18, 19 years old, so, like, they're kind of immature. And, like, you know what? I can even get behind that. I'm like, okay, they make silly choices sometimes. And like, you know, even sometimes the banter is stupid, but I'm like, okay, they're 18, 19 years old. And then you get to this point, and I'm just like, there is no way you're saving anybody because you're too stupid. Like, I'm glad you have to wear helmets in space. You can't spare the brain cells. So the squad, they're very close-knit at this point. They have, like, saved each other's lives multiple occasions here. And they've spent this whole book calling each other, like, family. And then finally, a big secret is revealed about a person on the crew. And they're like, you lied to us! And here's the deal. It's like, was this secret hard to figure out? No, I've known since book 1. This was not really hard to put together, frankly. I'm surprised they didn't put it together on their own sooner than then. And they find out this big secret, and they all flip out, and they're like, you betrayed us, you lied! And first of all, this character didn't betray anyone. They just didn't tell, like, a secret about their past that they were ashamed of. And then they find out, and mind you, it has nothing to do with this person's character. This person has saved them on multiple occasions. This person has gone way far and beyond what was required. And they've been calling this person family for most of the book. And in a split instance, they're always like, you lied about one thing and we hate you now. And they kick this person off the team. And I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? And I got so upset with it because it's just like, I get being upset. Like, it's kind of a bombshell revelation. And I get people being like, I can't believe you lied, and like being upset. But like kicking this person off the team, it's literally the dumbest reaction I could have thought of. Like, I've seen this happen before. A big secret comes out and everyone's just like, oh, you lied, and they're like mad, but I've never seen someone get kicked off of a team for something that honestly has nothing to do with their character. It's not like they betrayed anybody at all. It's literally just a stupid response from children who are trying to be adults who are failing. And it just enraged me to like the nth degree. There's no logical reason for it. There's literally no logical reason for them to kick this person out of the squad. It's like, frankly, this is book 2 of a trilogy. The squad is going through some shit. People are separated already. You have a squad of 6 people trying to save the universe. You can't spare the fucking people, and you kick this person off your team. Frankly, it's like the dumbest thing they could have done. And in a sea full of stupidity, this was like the final thing. Like, I couldn't deal with it. And like, there are parts of the story that are likable and fun and, you know, stupid space adventure stuff that is like genuinely fun to read. But like, oh my gosh, these characters are literally the stupidest people. And like, I don't think I'm gonna read book 3. Like, I'm over it now. And it's like, oh my gosh, it was so fucking dumb that I'm over it. Like, I'm not gonna read the finale. I've read 2 books already. Like, that is saying something, but you know, I don't have the heart to give it something lower than like 2 stars, because like it was fun for a lot of it until you get to the stupidity, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I fucking can't. Like, that's just lazy writing. But yeah, I'm so thoroughly disappointed. It is just, I'm just gonna move on. I'm upset. Last category is amazing books, and I read 2 of them. Now, coming off of the whole Aurora Burning debacle, I have The Worst of All Possible Worlds by Alex White, and this is a very similar type of concept. It's a group of misfit space adventurers saving the universe, and in this book, it's done so fucking well that it makes Aurora Burning look even worse in comparison. But let's talk about this book. This is the big finale of the Salvager series, and I have read the whole series this year, and I have genuinely very much enjoyed it. It is very action-packed, it's cinematic in scope. We have this group of misfit space adventurers. They're kind of treasure hunters, the crew of the Capricious. And they are also trying to save the universe from a big, bad, magical wizard. Yes, they're space wizards. I'm totally into it already. And this is like the big, drawn-out conclusion. Things are going awry, things are lost, and it's like, oh man, how's this gonna shake out? And the only thing that wasn't fantastic is like the ending kind of went out with a whisper a little bit. But I think it leaves the door open for future adventures if they ever want to go back to the series and continue writing books in it. So there's that. But like the very, very ending of this book is a bit of a whisper. But it gave me everything else I wanted out of it. Big, you know, climactic battles and the big finale, the big showdown with the big bad. We finally get it. And, you know, our space adventurers, they win, obviously. Like, that's not really a spoiler. But I just wanted to see it happen. And I'm so happy it did. I give 5 stars. I loved every minute of this. I had so much fun reading it. It's so action-packed and detailed. The world building is incredible. The inner dynamics of the crew is fantastic. These people are actually qualified to save the universe. Like, if I'm like, oh man, the universe is in trouble and we gotta depend on these guys to save us, I'd be like, we got a fair chance of living. So yeah, I would take this crew over that other crew any day. Totally so much better. It basically took the same concept and did it right. And I love this series so much. I won't get into any plot points because frankly it's the 3rd book of the series. It's too many things to go into, but it's fantastic. I highly recommend the series. Do check it out. The last book I have read so far in August is The Deathless Divide by Justina Ireland. I had to read this right away. I read Dread Nation in like, I was a third of the way in and just immediately ordered book 2. Like, that's how good it was. And I was like, I need more of that story! And I got so much more of that story and I was so excited. Like, honestly, I gave it 5 stars as well. It was so good. It's just as good as book 1, but I'll say if you loved book 1 and you're really attached to these characters, ooh, this first half of this book it's gonna hurt your feelings, I'll warn you. And that's not a spoiler, okay? This is a book about fucking zombies. You can't get attached to people in a zombie story. But oh boy, things get rough. This book is kind of almost 2 books. You have the first half of the book, which is, whoa, there's a lot. And then you have the second half of the book, which is kind of a different arc. And the second arc of the story is very different, and it almost could have been a book 3, honestly. So this is a duology, but it could have been a trilogy. I was kind of wondering why this book wasn't split into 2 books, because I would have read another book, honestly. I think I wouldn't have any problem with them expanding it. We're still following Jane and Catherine, very unlikely 2 girls who end up being best friends. They are complete opposites in every way, but they really do complement each other well. And there's so much focus on the development of their complex friendship and how it's not just one thing and it's not shown just as like, we support each other. It's deeper than that. It's just like, yeah, I understand what you need. And right now you need to punch someone in the face. So here you go. Like, it's like a real deep understanding of the other person. And it's just so well done and complex and intricate that it's kind of masterful writing, honestly. I was really impressed with it. And also, you know, it's a Western zombie story with bounty hunters and zombies and wagon trains and all the things you like associate with Westerns, but also zombies. And like, I just love it so much. I'm trying very hard not to spoil anything because it's so good. The characters are so well developed and so well written. I would totally read more books in this series. If Justina Ireland ever decides to write some more books in the series, I would snatch those up. This would be an auto-buy author for me. It's freaking amazing. And this is in the YA section, and frankly, as an adult, it's really good for adults too. Like, I would say it's also for YA readers, but it's one of those books that's just like, they're not treating YA books as if they need to be dumbed down. Which was my problem with the other book I talked about earlier, Girl Serpentthorne, where it's a YA book, but it dumbed it down because it felt like it needed to. And it's like, YA books don't need to be dumbed down that much, frankly. You can have it have all of the complexity and intricacies as an adult book. It's just, you know, you're writing also for a younger audience. So there's certain things that need to be changed, but really, you can have a complex book. Teenagers can handle complexity. So, it's so good. 5 stars. Just read this series. It's freaking amazing, guys. I mean, it's Civil War zombies. That should already be like a giveaway that it's gonna be awesome. So, I recommend. Like, come for the zombies, stay for the complex female friendships. It's beautiful. Okay, so far in August, I've read 6 books. And you know what? None of them have been like complete dumpster fires. I mean, Aurora Burning was approaching dumpster fire, frankly. But it was fun enough to save it from the internal flames of the dumpster. So there's that. That being said, it's a good first half of August. I read 6 books and none of them were terrible. All of them were at least okay, if not fantastic. So I'm winning here. Let me know in the comments down below. Have you read any of these books? And if so, what were your favorites? What were your least favorites? Or what are you reading right now? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, side note, just a reminder, the last Saturday of August, the 29th, here on my channel, there's going to be a live show, me and Leanna from Leanna's Library. We have the Blades and Bodice Rippers book club, and we are going to be going over the book of the month for August, which is Daring and the Duke by Sarah McLean. I hope you guys can come tune in. It'll be 11 a.m. that Saturday, 11 a.m. Pacific time that Saturday on my channel. Please come chat with us. It'll be super fun. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye.